Welcome to today's Feminine Leadership Activation Call. I am Tanya Lynn, and today we are going to be talking about balance. And this has been such a huge theme for me as I've stepped into motherhood. And I hear a lot in all the mama communities that I'm part of how do I balance baby and business and my relationship and my self-care and my exercise and all of that. And I think it's something that we're all striving to find is like, how do we be in that middle ground? So let's start how we always start on these calls, and close your eyes. And let's take a deep breath in, filling up, taking in everything that you need, and then exhale, letting go all that doesn't serve you. Inhale again, really filling yourself up, feeling abundant, feeling that all your needs are met, all in this breath. And exhale, again, purifying, letting go. And last one, filling up. This time, really feeling your capacity of your lungs, breathing in, breathe in more, sip, and exhale, relaxing your body, letting go. Feminine leadership. Today's focus is really on that feminine part where we're allowing, we're receiving, we aren't pushing, we're not forcing, we're leading by example. We're leading from our intuition. We're leading from our heart. We're trusting ourselves, trusting that all of our needs are met, trusting that the universe truly does have our back, that we're not in this alone. We're connected to all that is. Trusting others as a reflection of ourselves, as connected to us, both reflecting our shadow and our light. Today we draw upon Siege. And Siege is a goddess, all about quiet time. If you know these goddess guidance oracle cards by Doreen Virtue. I hope I'm saying her name right. She's the Gnostic goddess, considered to be the great silence or void from which all creation sprang. And she reminds us that words create duality and that in silence we find our true origin and self. Quiet is omnipresent power that gives birth to wisdom, just as the Gnostics hold that Siege is the mother of Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. She teaches that our roots are in the silent void of the universe and that it's important for us to reconnect with silence regularly. Such a perfect card. I just drew this and I find it very interesting because that was exactly the card that I was thinking about. And that was the goddess that I was wanting to draw upon and ask for her guidance in creating balance. And I just want to start with talking about balance in the body and how our body is always striving for balance. And so whenever we are overloaded, the body is naturally going to try to correct the imbalance. And so when we get out of balance in the body, when we are overly stressed, overly stimulated, what's happening? Our cortisol levels raise, we're flooded with hormones and different things are happening in the body, and then energy gets stuck. And inflammation comes from stress, comes from imbalance. And so we have these flare-ups in the body, and they're a great indicator that we're out of balance. And if we think about this, the silent part, and we look at our relationship with the world, we are constantly being overstimulated with the internet, with all the information out there, with all the to-dos out there. We are in this world that is just, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of chaos, and there's just a lot of busyness. So there's no wonder that we are looking for balance, that is such a hot topic, and that is such an important, integral part of being a feminine leader. And so Siege really teaches us that the first piece of how do we find balance in this world that has so much noise is to find the silence, to find the quiet time. And I think this is such a great place for us to start. And we're going to do this for a moment where we're going to sit here for a minute of silence. And so I'm going to actually put the timer on and close your eyes and just focus on the breath that's coming in and out of your nose. Ready, begin. All right, so that was a minute. You can open your eyes. Notice for a moment, just actually look at your body right now. And hold on one second. So I got disconnected there. So just checking in with your body and feeling like, how did that feel to just sit in that moment of silence in those 60 seconds? Did you notice all the noise in your head? Or were you feeling the relaxation? Was your mind able to be quiet for that long? And, you know, for the past, God, it's been 8 years now, I go to silent meditation, Vipassana, every single year for 10 days. And it's amazing how much I let go of when I'm able to just be silent, and how much I'm able to come back to myself. And I think that's the thing that we're seeking is we're so out there. We're outside of ourselves. There's so much going on, and we feel like we're losing ourselves. We're losing our power. And so we're so focused on the external that the balance is the internal, is going within, is having those moments of silence when you're shutting off the world and you're allowing yourself to curl in, to reflect in. It's kind of like with yoga sometimes, and I'm saying yoga because I've started my practice again, but the forward fold sometimes can be so much easier than the back bend because we're so used to leading by going forward. We're not so used to leaning back and going back because the back body, there's that level of trust. And so when we're talking about balance, it's, can you go forward, but can you also lean back? Can you, and here's feminine leadership, here's this integration piece of being able to lead by walking forward, taking action, and balancing that out with and integrating that with being able to lean back, to trust, to feel the support, that it's not just about going and doing it on your own, but also receiving support. So when we're talking about how do I balance my life and my business, how do I balance my relationship? You know, we get into a new relationship, we're so in love and it feels like we're consumed by the relationship and we're like, wait, I got to balance myself out, right? Or we're working so hard and we're trying to find that self-care. It's going back to how much of my life am I trying to do on my own, and how much am I allowing myself to receive support? So it's this constant balance between individual and community, doing and being able to take that step forward and receiving support and leaning back and trusting. It's a constant balance. And the universe is constantly asking for us to find that balance. Here we are in this, you know, we think about oneness and we think that we're all connected. And at the same time, there is this duality. We do have shadow and light. We do have this body, this structure, and our essence. We have this body and we also have a soul. We experience the duality of sadness and happiness. We are in this, like, that is what's real, right? And so it's not about being way over in one side, but being able to be in both. Now, here's something else that I want to say about balance, and that is that sometimes you are going to be in the flow and you're going to be working really hard because you're in a zone. And it's not actually about, well, if I'm going to be really working hard, that I need to let off the steam and hold myself back. I don't believe that that's balance. And this is where I've heard Danielle Laporte talk about, like, balance is bullshit. Because she's like, there's going to be times when I'm totally immersed in a project and I'm like totally gung-ho and focused on that. And then that's going to end. And then I'm going to just rest for a week. So balance doesn't have to be that you need to be constantly holding yourself back when you're in that flow and when you're in that high and when you're feeling that focus and motivation and inspiration. I think balance is actually about going fully head on into that and being fully focused. So if I'm feeling that I really want to immerse myself in writing a book in a week, then I'm just going to focus on that. And here's the piece. It's the balance actually is in not being distracted, to just allow myself to be fully focused on that, to take breaks, of course, and to do things that are going to enhance my creativity and to continue to keep me in that inspired state. And then when I complete the project, to then allow myself to come down. Because what I found, and I've looked at, you know, this idea of bipolar and being on these extremes, right, where there's this extreme high and then this extreme low. And I've noticed that within myself, of when I'm in that high, I need to use up that energy. And if I'm not, I'm actually not doing myself a service. And I've learned from actually my human design chart that if I am not using up that energy that's brewing inside of me, that's actually where I find imbalance. That's when I go to bed and my head's still racing and I still have all those thoughts. So for me, it's about how can I actually burn off all that energy so that when I go to bed at night, I'm able to just fully sleep. So this for me is bringing it back to presence. Can I be fully present in what I'm doing right here, right now, and go all the way and use up my energy and then refuel? So I think about this as like we're cars. And the car, most of the time, you're going to go all the way to empty and then refill. You're going to use up the oil and then get an oil change. And yet at the same time, it's about making sure that you don't go past that limit where you're burning and you don't have any more oil and the oil's dirty at its lowest point and you keep going and you push past that. That's the point where I don't think we go, and that's another way of creating imbalance. So it's like, how do I find that place of knowing where my limit and my edge is, going to that place, and then refueling, re-energizing, resting, so that I can continue to go when I'm in that state of creativity and inspiration. When we go past our limit, then we're depleting ourselves, right? This is this place of when we lead as women to make sure that we're filling our tanks. That if we're giving, we're over giving, and then we're at this place of depletion and we're burning ourselves out at the, we're helping others on the expense of our own well-being. That doesn't work. So if I'm focused on a project, let's just use that as I'm going to write a book in a week, which is actually what I did. I wrote this ebook in about a week's time. It took me maybe, about 10 days. And I just focused on that. I turned off all the other distractions. I wasn't being as social, and I just focused on that. Now, what did I do is I made sure that I was getting enough rest, that I was eating properly, that I was exercising, and I was out in nature. Those were the things that were keeping my tanks full so that I can fully focus on getting that ebook written. So that is the piece, is exquisite self-care. So if we're seeking balance, it comes back to, how am I taking care of this body, this mind, this heart? How am I making sure that my tanks are full so that I am able to do my work in the world? The self-care piece is so important. And what I found is my key to doing that is scheduling. So, and I commit to something. It's really easy to get sidetracked into time passes and you don't go out and exercise if you don't actually have it as part of your routine and your schedule. So what did I do? I signed up for a 20-day yoga challenge, and I went in, I looked at the schedule, and then I picked which times and I put them into my calendar. So that is just like an appointment that I would have with a client, or I would have with, if I was going out to dinner with a friend. It's in the calendar and I honor it as sacred. And I honor that time because I've got 24 hours in a day. And if I'm going to be spending 8 hours of working on my book every day, then what are the ways that I'm going to make sure that I'm getting the nourishment and I'm feeling filled up so that I can continue to follow that inspiration and be, follow the motivation and continue to play full out with whatever it is that I'm focusing on. So by me committing to, I'm going to do the 20 days and putting it into my calendar, I've now created a structure to support myself. This is so important. And I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed with all these commitments. How many times have you said, oh, I'm overcommitting to everything, right? I'm doing too much. You're creating imbalance because you're not actually using structures. You're not actually using a calendar to really look at, okay, so I need to plug in my self-care. I need to plug in my exercise. I need to plug in my date night with my man. I need to plug in like when I'm working and when I'm not. When's my time? And it helps us so much when we actually use a schedule and we're really honoring our time. It actually allows us to expand and to not get overwhelmed. What I found is my source of finding imbalance is where I overload my social calendar. And so what I've been looking at doing is to actually plug in a day that is dedicated to social engagement. Brent has taught me something really powerful. He's like, I can only handle 1 to 2 social engagements a week. For him, it's very overwhelming to be at a party all the time and, constantly. So again, it's that inner and outer, the outer world and all the noise out there and making sure that I go within. So, whether it's, okay, I'm going to have a weekly walk date with a friend and I can schedule those out and I can make sure that I'm having that, because that really fills me up, is having that connection time and making sure that I'm staying connected with the people in my life, but that I'm not overdoing it. Because what I found is that I'll go and have like 5 dates in a week. And then I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I didn't get anything done and I just feel burned out. And it's because I was way out there spending all this time with others and I wasn't balancing that out with me. So it's to really look at, and you can use muscle testing if that's something that works for you, of how much social time is enough for you. When is it going to be past your limit? When is it actually going to be depleting versus nourishing? And that's a question that you can ask yourself is this going to deplete me or is it going to fill me up? In every activity that you do. And so to actually create a schedule that's going to support you in being nourished versus being depleted. So this actually takes some time. It takes time to sit down and to schedule and to really tune in to what does your body need, and then to make adjustments along the way. So we're going to try it out. Does this work for this week? And then you readjust, you evaluate. And I think this is a piece that's really important, is this evaluation. And it's important actually to do this with your work as well, is evaluating how you're doing, evaluating what's working and what's not working. What if you actually schedule time every Sunday to look at your life, to go through the areas of your life and to go through the time that you spent and look at what worked and what didn't work about this week? What am I tending to in my garden? And you could think of it, when I talked about in one of the previous calls, the activation calls, is we talked about that you as a feminine leader are a flower. And it's about blossoming and being and just shining in your radiance and your beauty. You could actually think about your entire environment as your garden, your relationships, your self-care, your work, your family, your health, your spirituality. All of these pieces are your garden. Which areas of the garden are you tending to, and which areas need to be tended to? Where are the weeds starting to grow that you need to maybe go and do some weeding? Where do you need to do some watering, right? Where do you need to clear out? Where do you need to water? Where do you need to fertilize? It's a beautiful way of looking at your life and to create balance of the whole garden needs to be working together. All of these areas of our life are all connected. There actually is no separation. Our relationship is our work. Our self-care is our family. Our spirituality is our work. All these things are connected in your life. So if I actually go to work on one area, if I go to work on my self-care, it's going to naturally enhance and improve my work. If I tend to my relationship, that's going to help me with my self-care, right? So it's all connected. If we're out of balance in one area, it's going to pull on another area. So it's looking at what area do I need to tend to. And the thing is going back to one at a time. You don't need to be doing everything all at once. That's the source of overwhelm, is it's like all balls in the air and I need to juggle. No, actually, that is not what we're talking about. Then you're not present. The presence piece is really important when we're talking about balance. And this is where this goes to Danielle Laporte talking about how balance is bullshit, and this idea of like, I'm going to be working just on this right now. So I'm tending to this area. I'm making sure that I'm fulfilled. And then I'm going to step back when I complete that project and I'm going to look at, okay, now what do I need to tend to? So it's okay if you're just totally immersed in your work 1 week, and then the next week you're totally immersed in relationship. How good would that actually feel to be fully present and in the moment with that area of your life? It's a different way of looking at balance. Balance is not doing everything all at once, all the time, having all cylinders running. That's going to totally burn you out. That's totally going to overwhelm you if you're trying to do it all. And if you're trying to do and be everything for all people. You can't. You just possibly can't. So here's an important distinction that I need to make as we're wrapping up the call here, is setting expectations. This is where so many people get into trouble, and we'll go into this more on the next call, is overcommitting to too many relationships and then not being in communication and not setting expectations up front. How many times have you felt like you've flaked on someone, or you haven't been able to commit to someone, and then you feel like you blew it in the relationship? It's probably because you didn't manage the expectation. You weren't tending to the communication, really. And that I really want to dive into next week, because that's going to be so helpful. Well, not next week, but the next call. It's so helpful when you know how to communicate effectively and manage expectations, manage your relationships. And we're actually even going to talk about how do we manage the energy, and where we're feeling overwhelmed and we're feeling super sensitive and there's a lot of energy that's stirring. How do we manage that? So on the next call, we're going to be talking about managing expectations, managing your relationships, managing energy. Thank you so much for being on this call. If you want to listen to any of the recordings, go to sistershipcircle.com/activation-calls, and I'll see you on the next call, where we're going to talk more about balance and specifically about managing all of that.